Welcome, guys. Welcome again to my channel. This is Trev from Treversons, and tonight we are going to be continuing the reading of Tuesdays with Morrie. For those of you who were with us yesterday morning when we started to read this book, I'm sure you will agree that this is a very inspirational book. And it is a book that I would encourage everybody to read. But since I know that many of you do not really like to read, since I know that many of you do not really like to read, and I like to read, I will read for you. I read, you listen. And together we'll all get the benefit of the reading. All right. So, with that, guys, don't forget to get your friends and your family, share out the live to everybody you know so that we can get more people coming into the live and listening to the reading. I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you who have come in, who have come in religiously to my live when I am reading, whether it be the Bible or some other novel of some sort. I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you. And I thank you all so much for coming. Yard Foods is here. Sister Yard Food, how are you doing? Something I know me put my iPad. Oh, okay. I can use this for Yard Foods. Yes, Sister Yard Foods. And guys, once you come into the live, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and share out the live. And also, when you come into the live, if you are a content creator, you are next on the list to get watch hours. I use my various devices to give watch hours, and you can get watch hours, no limits. No limits. I run you on my device until I need the device. Yes, you get watch hours, and if I'm doing something, I still leave your videos running so that you get the watch hours. I mean, guys, we I spend time watching videos from people who ain't never spent a minute in my channel, and so I don't see why I would want to continue to do that when I have my YouTubers, my small YouTubers like myself, who who are ardent supporters. When I have free time, I believe you are the ones who deserve the free time, the free hours for me to run your videos so that you can benefit rather than running the videos of big big corporations and big 2, 1, 3 million subscriber channels and stuff. Uh-uh. I will run you if you got 200 subscribers, and I will keep moving when I see somebody with 2 million, because I always believe in cheering for the little man. Yeah. So tonight we're going to continue. Ricky, Ricky, bless up your nice clean self, Ricky. Bless up yourself. So this, I don't know, I'm doing my iPad. I left you in Miami. Ah, all right. So these are Yard Foods. Let me see what I'm gonna run for Yard Foods yet. Let me see. Let me run everything. I will clear this out so that we can run Yard Foods again. All right. But this I wanna start right there. So this I can selfish from 3 years ago. From 3 years ago. All right, Yard Food. Me watch you already, cause see it have one thumbs up. That means I'm watch you already. This one me watch already to it have one thumbs up. Anytime it have one thumbs up, me know some watch already. Alright, that one you're counting down for Christmas not have no thumbs up, so that means I'm ain't watch it yet. But anyway, sometimes they went to buy them at Costco. Eh? I wouldn't go to Costco go buy. I wouldn't go to Costco go buy Yard Foods. I mean, yes, yard food. That is just me. Me just think say if I have some extra minutes in a me day, as busy as me be, if me have some extra minutes. Yeah, me have whole heap of small YouTubers where I'm friends, whole heap of people. Me can't possibly get back to everybody. But when I see you all in the live or when I see you all comment on somebody else's live, that is my opportunity to say, oh yeah, we need to go over there and go show you, and go show you some love. Yes, that's how we got to do it. Yeah, because we have to show the love no matter what. All right. See Ricky coming at the place here, so let me see if Ricky. Let me see what I have with Ricky right here, so yeah. Watching me, watching me the fish now. I did watch this already while I clean my fish. That is sounds so funny. Let me just see how I clean my fish. Oh my god. 131 playlist. Let me see how much me watch out it already. Much me run out it already. I mean I run everything. Cause see there's some of them still not have the red line underneath them. So therefore, Ricky, all the banana them go bad. Alright, I'm put my headphone in this so that if me turn it up, it now if me turn it up we not hear it. Okay, so Ricky, what that Ricky I do? Cold weather in Florida. It's from 2 years ago. Watching my bungle up now. Alright, so there you go, Ricky. That look how it's sitting them quail up as a pear tree quail up like our. The cold weather no ram to fix them business, brother. Yeah, so that's why anytime Ricky, anytime my love, anytime. Yeah, I do. Oh, I do. hmm And now we are going to be reading this book. We are going to be reading this book Tuesdays with Morrie. Yesterday, when we were reading this book yesterday, I was so impressed. I was like, wow, this professor. I may not find my tablet yet, but me I use one device here, so. And me have yard foods I run for one next one and you are run for one next one. Let me go find my tablet because somebody else are gonna come in and need those. Yeah, see that me have an idea when me did have it. So me just walk go right there go pick it up. Yeah. So here we are. So we have the tablet here, so I'm not even know if it have any charge. Yeah, yeah, 49% charge. Okay, guys. So here we are. We are going to be reading. I'm gonna find the tablet now. So I have a tablet right here. So now I go swallow it for my headache. Anywho, gentle people, I am going to be reading this book, Tuesdays with Morrie. This is the book that we started reading yesterday, and we see how the professor, after after getting diagnosed, a terminal diagnosis, he he decides to live his life in a different form, live his life with the expectation of his death, and to get everybody to join with him. And I thought that was such a genius way to approach death because we are all afraid of death, but there's nothing we can do when death comes. So I don't even see what is the point of us being so deathly afraid of death when we can't do anything about it. It's going to come one way or the other. And so that's why I've fallen in love with Morrie and the way that he chooses to approach death. Now, without much more talking, gentle people, without me blabbing my mouth away, throughout the throughout the live. Let us move right along and read the book. Because I'm sure y'all are here for the reading, not to hear me blabbling away. But anyway, let us. You know how many times I say, but anyway, let us read. You know how many times I said that I still ain't start reading yet. I'm going to start now, though. Oops. In the campus bookstore, I shop for the items on Morrie's reading list. I purchased books that I never knew existed. Titles such as Youth, Identity and Crisis, I and Thou, The Divided Self. Before college, I did not know the study of human relations could be considered scholarly until I met Morrie. I did not believe it. But his passion for books is real and contagious. We begin to talk seriously sometimes after class when the room was emptied. He asked me questions about my life, then quotes lines from Eric Fromm, Martin Buber, Eric Erikson. Well, I know Eric Erikson. I studied Eric Erikson in college, but I don't know the others. I don't know who they are. Often, he defers to their words, footnoting his own advice, even though he obviously thought the same things himself. It is at these times that I realize he is indeed a professor, not an uncle. One afternoon, I am complaining about the confusion of my age, what is expected of me versus what I want for myself. Where say, Ricky says, Yo, Trevor, I'm not afraid of death. I always say when it comes, it comes. That is the thing. When it comes, it comes. There's nothing we can do about it. But at the same time, just the thought terrifies me. And that is why I always say that when you get old, I think death becomes an expectation. And so even if you are afraid of it, you know that there's nothing you can do and you expect it. So I think it is more soothing for an elderly person to face death than it is for a young person. Young people not think about them. I think about you gotta have pitney, you gotta have sex, you gotta have man, you gotta have woman, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you gotta have a life. Young people ain't thinking about that. So I can understand how petrifying it has to be for a young person to think about that. But at this time, Marley is like 70 something. So for Marley, it is not as terrifying to die because whether he is sick or not, he's going to die. You know, you guess you're, no, you're not. Who is that? Liz. Liz, what's up? How are you doing, my love? It's so good to see you as always. All right, so Liz coming at the place. Liz comes in, so the iPad goes to work. Let me find you here, Liz. Let me find you here, my love. Come on, thing, come on. Gotcha. Hold on there. Why the iPad are going so? Like it not understand the assignment. Why is the iPad misbehaving? Come on, iPad. We gotta give Liv some watch hours. Quit acting foolish. Quit acting like this. Alright. Alright, so we are on to release the light. Release. Release the lights. I don't know why it now show me early. Okay, here it is. Release the lights. All right, Arlie, you're going to see you have a new subscriber from Steel News. All right, there you go. There you go. You have a new subscriber from Stale News. Stale News is me. I haven't started posting anything on that channel yet, but I'm going to start soon. And as its name suggests, that's also I was going to post over there. Oh, sorry. Let me read. And stop a chat. All right. Have I told you about the tension of opposites? He says. The tension of opposites? Life is a series of pulls back and forth. You want to do one thing, but you are bound to do something else. Something hurts you, yet you know it shouldn't. You take certain things for granted, even when you know you should never take anything for granted. A tension of opposites, like a pull on a rubber band, and most of us live somewhere in the middle. Sounds like a wrestling match, I would say. A wrestling match? He laughs. Yes, you could describe life that way. So which side wins? I ask. Which side wins? He smiles at me, the crinkled eyes, the crooked teeth. Love wins. Love always wins. Taking attendance. I flew to London a few weeks later. I was covering Wimbledon, the world's premier tennis competition, and one of the few events I go to where the crowd never boos and no one is drunk in the parking lot. England was warm and cloudy, and each morning I walked the tree-lined streets near the tennis courts, passing teenagers queued up for leftover tickets and vendors selling strawberries and cream. Outside the gate was a newsstand that sold a half a dozen colorful British tabloids, featuring photos of topless women, paparazzi pictures of the royal family, horoscopes, sports, lottery contests, and a wee bit of actual news. Their top headline of the day was written on a small chalkboard that leaned against the latest stack of papers, and usually read something like Diana in row with Charles or Gaza to team, give me millions. People scooped up these tabloids, devoured their gossip, and on previous trips to England, I had always done the same. But now, for some reason, I found myself thinking about Morrie whenever I read anything silly or mindless. I kept picturing him there in the house with the Japanese maple and the hardwood floors, counting his breath, squeezing out every moment with his loved ones. While I spent so many hours on things that meant absolutely nothing to me personally, movie stars, supermodels, the latest noise out of Princess Di or Madonna or JF Kennedy Jr., in a strange way, I envied the quality of Morrie's time, even as I lamented its diminishing supply. Why did we bother with all the distractions we did? Back home, the O.J. Simpson trial was in full swing, and there were people who surrendered their entire lunch hours watching it, then taped the rest so they could watch more at night. They didn't know O.J. Simpson. They didn't know anyone involved in the case. Yet, they gave up days and weeks of their lives addicted to someone else's drama. I remembered what Morrie said during our visit. The culture we have does not make people feel good about themselves, and you have to be strong enough to say if the culture doesn't work, don't buy it. Morrie, true to these words, had developed his own culture long before he got sick. Discussion groups, walks with friends, dancing to his music in the Harvard Square Church. He started a project called Greenhouse, where poor people could receive mental health services. He read books to find new ideas for his classes. He visited with colleagues, kept up with old students, wrote letters to distant friends. He took more time eating and looking at nature and wasted no time in front of television sitcoms or movies of the week. He had created a cocoon of human activities, conversations, interactions, affections, and it filled his life like an overflowing soup bowl. Hey G, what's up? Brother Zella, how are you doing? I had also developed my own culture, work. I did 4 or 5 media jobs in England, juggling them like a clown. I spent 8 hours a day on the computer, feeding my stories back to the States. Then I did TV pieces, traveling with a crew through all parts of London. I also phoned in radio reports every morning and afternoon. This was not an abnormal load. Over the years, I had taken labor as my companion and had moved everything else to the side. In Wimbledon, I ate meals at my little wooden work cubicle and thought nothing of it. On one particularly crazy day, a crush of reporters had tried to chase down Andre Agassi and his famous girlfriend Brooke Shields, and I had gotten knocked over by a British photographer who barely muttered sorry before sweeping past, his huge metal lenses strapped across his neck. I thought of something else Morrie had told me. So many people walk around with a meaningless life. They seem half asleep, even when they are busy doing things they think are important. This is because they are chasing the wrong things. The way you get meaning into your life is to devote yourself to loving others. Devote yourself to your community around you and devote yourself to creating something that gives you purpose and meaning. I knew he was right. Not that I did anything about it. At the end of the tournament and the countless cups of coffee I drank to get through it, I closed my computer, cleaned out my cubicle, and went back to the apartment to pack. It was late. The TV was nothing but fuzz. I flew to Detroit, arrived late in the afternoon, dragged myself home, and went to sleep. I awoke to a jolting piece of news. The unions at my newspaper had gone on strike. The place was shut down. There were picketers at the front entrance and marchers chanting up and down the street. As a member of the union, I had no choice. I was suddenly, and for the first time in my life, out of a job, out of a paycheck, and pitted against my employers. Union leaders called my home and warned me against any contact with my former editors, many of whom were my friends, telling me to hang up if they tried to call and plead their case. We're going to fight until we win, the union leaders swore, sounding like soldiers. I felt confused and depressed. Although the TV and radio work were nice supplements, the newspaper had been my lifeline, my oxygen. When I saw my stories in print in each morning, I knew that in at least one way, I was alive. Now it was gone. And as the strike continued, the first day, the second day, the third day, there were worried phone calls and rumors that this could go on for months. Everything I had known was upside down. There were sporting events each night that I would have gone to cover. Instead, I stayed home and watched them on TV. I had grown used to thinking readers somehow needed my column. I was stunned at how easily things went on without me. After a week of this, I picked up the phone and dialed Morrie's number. Connie brought him to the phone. "You're coming to visit me?" he said, less a question than a statement. "Well, could I? How about Tuesday?" "Tuesday would be good," I said. "Tuesday would be fine." In my sophomore year, I took 2 more of his courses. We go beyond the classroom, meeting now and then just to talk. I have never done this before with an adult who was not a relative. Yet I feel comfortable doing it with Morrie, and he seems comfortable making the time. Where shall we visit today? He asked cheerily when I entered his office. In the spring, we sit under a tree outside the sociology department, and in the winter, we sit by his desk. Me in my grey sweatshirts and Adidas sneakers, Morrie in Rockport shoes and corduroy pants. Each time we talk, he listens to me ramble. Then he tries to pass on some sort of life lesson. He warns me that money is not the most important thing, contrary to the popular view on campus. He tells me I need to be fully human. He speaks of the alienation of youth and the need for connectiveness with the society around me. Some of these things I understand, some I don't. It makes no difference. The discussions gave me an excuse to talk to him. Fatherly conversations I cannot have with my own father, who would like me to be a lawyer. Morrie hates lawyers. What do you want to do when you get out of college? He asked. I want to be a musician, I said. Piano player. Wonderful, he says, but that's a hard life. Yeah, a lot of sharks. That's what I hear. Still, he says, if you really want it, then you'll make your dream happen. I want to hug him, to thank him for saying that, but I am not that open. I only nod instead. I bet you play piano with a lot of pep, he says. I laugh. Pep? He laughs back. Pep, what's the matter? They don't say that anymore, Morrie. God, God, you're like, you can't go and find your way home. Welcome, sis. Welcome into the live. I see AG, Yard Food, Card, Brother Zell, Sister Liz, Ricky, yeah. Oh, don't forget to hit the like button, guys, and share out the live. I sincerely appreciate you all. So these are really life lessons that Morrie is sharing with his friend, because oftentimes when you talk to older people, their wisdom shines through when they try to give you advice. But sir, a lot of times us young people, we ain't listening. We ain't listening. We ain't paying no mind. We're doing our own thing. We're doing our own thing. Well, here, Morrie is giving his friend the best advice that he can. He says, live your life. Your life doesn't have any meaning if it's not lived for the service of others. So you gotta live with the intent to serve one another, and not just intend to do it, but do it. The first Tuesday we talk about the world. Let's read here. The first Tuesday, we talk about the world. Connie opened the door and let me in. Morrie was in his wheelchair by the kitchen table, wearing a loose cotton shirt and even looser black sweatpants. They were loose because his legs had atrophied beyond normal clothing size. You could get 2 hands around his thighs and have your fingers touch. Had he been able to stand, he'd have been no more than 5 feet tall, and he'd probably have fit into a 6th grader's jeans. I got you something, I announced, holding up a brown paper bag. I had stopped on my way from the airport at a nearby supermarket and purchased some turkey, potato salad, macaroni salad, and bagels. I knew there was plenty of food at the house, but I wanted to contribute something. I was so powerless to help Morrie otherwise, and I remembered his fondness for eating. Oh, so much food, he sang. Well, now you have to eat it with me. We sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by wicker chairs, this time without the need to make up 16 years of information. We slid quickly into the familiar waters of our old college dialogue. Morrie asking questions, listening to my replies, stopping like a chef to sprinkle in something I'd forgotten or hadn't realized. He asked about the newspaper strike, and true to form, he couldn't understand why both sides didn't simply communicate with each other and solve their problems. I told him not everyone was as smart as he was. Occasionally, he had to stop to use the bathroom, a process that took some time. Connie would wheel him to the toilet, then lift him from the chair and support him as he urinated into the beaker. Each time he came back, he looked tired. Do you remember when I told Ted Koppel that pretty soon someone was gonna have to wipe my ass? He said. I laughed. You don't forget a moment like that. Well, I think that day is coming. That one bothers me. Why? Because it's the ultimate sign of dependency. Someone wiping your bottom, but I'm working on it. I'm trying to enjoy the process. Enjoy it? Yes. After all, I get to be a baby one more time. That's a unique way to look at it. Well, I have to look at life uniquely now. Let's face it, I can't go shopping. I can't take care of my bank accounts. I can't take out the garbage. But I can sit here with my dwindling days and look at what I think is important in life. I have both the time and the reason to do that. So I said, in a reflexively cynical response, I guess the key to finding the meaning of life is to stop taking out the garbage. He laughed, and I was relieved that he did. Welcome into the live, everybody. We are reading from the book Tuesdays with Morrie, a very inspirational book that was given to me by a friend, and I am reading it, so I'm sharing it with you. As Connie took the plates away, I noticed a stack of newspapers that had obviously been read before I got there. You bother keeping up with the news? I asked. Yes, Morrie said. Do you think that's strange? Do you think because I'm dying, I shouldn't care what happens in the world? Maybe. He sighed. Maybe you are right. Maybe I shouldn't care. After all, I won't be around to see how it all turns out. But it's hard to explain, Mitch. Now that I'm suffering, I feel closer to people who suffer than I ever did before. The other night on TV, I saw people in Bosnia running across the street, getting fired upon, getting killed, innocent victims, and I just started to cry. I feel their anguish as if it were my own. I don't know any of these people, but how can I put up with this? I'm I'm almost drawn to them. His eyes got moist, and I tried to change the subject, but he dabbed his face and waved me off. I cry all the time now, he said. Never mind. Amazing, I thought. I worked in the news business. I covered stories where people died. I interviewed grieving family members. I even attended the funerals. I never cried. Morrie, for the suffering of people half a world away, was weeping. Is that what comes at the end? I wondered. Maybe death is the great equalizer, the one big thing that can finally make strangers shed a tear, one for the other. Morrie honked loudly into the tissue. Then Morrie honked loudly into the tissue. This is okay with you, isn't it? Men crying? Sure, I said, too quickly. He grinned. Ha ha ha, Mitch. I'm gonna loosen you up. One day, I'm gonna show you it's okay to cry. Yeah, yeah, I said. Yeah, yeah, he said. We laughed because we used to say the same thing nearly 20 years earlier, mostly on Tuesdays. In fact, Tuesday had always been our day together. Most of my courses with Morrie were on Tuesdays. He had office hours on Tuesdays, and when I wrote my senior thesis, which was pretty much Morrie's suggestion, right from the start, it was on Tuesdays that we sat together. by his desk or in the cafeteria or on the steps of Perlman Hall going over the work. So it seemed only fitting that we were back together on a Tuesday, here in the house with the Japanese maple out in front. As I ready to go, I mentioned this to Morrie. We are Tuesday people, he said. Tuesday people? I repeated. Morrie smiled. Mitch, you asked about caring for people I don't even know. But can I tell you the thing? I'm learning more with this disease. What's that? The most important thing in life is to learn how to give out love and to let it come in. His voice dropped to a whisper. Let it come in. We think we don't deserve love. We think if we let it in, we'll become too soft. But a wise man named Levine said it right. He said, love is the only reaction. Love is the only rational act. He repeated it carefully, pausing for effect. Love is the only rational act. I nodded like a good student, and he exhaled weakly. I leaned over to give him a hug, and then, although it is not really like me, I kissed him on the cheek. I felt his weakened hands on my arms. The thin stubble of his whiskers brushed my face. So you'll come back next Tuesday? He asked. Everyone needs some popcorn. I'm selling popcorn, guys. Look, I'm gonna start sell popcorn when I read. So when I read, you can buy popcorn. You can buy popcorn and eat it on the live. Ain't that something? Ain't that would not be something nice? Oh, that's a nice thought. I guess I said popcorn and chips or something. I don't know. I don't know. But let us continue, guys. I hope you all are enjoying the reading as much as I am enjoying reading it for us. I see somebody said hello to Andrea. I didn't see when she came in. But hello, Andrea. How are you doing, love bug? Happy Monday to you, my dear. Hold on there. Okay. How are you over here, so? Test run with fire pit. Okay. Oh, let me see what Early doing here, so. Oh, them, Oh, Neesberry. We say me have two Neesberry now, Early. When me care from Jamaica. When me care from, really say Jamaica. Oh, I remember this video. There's a thumbs up there already. I remember it when you care about the Neesberry and the East Indian mango them from Jamaica. Aki and something. Yeah, me remember that. Okay, let us continue, guys. He, me choke. Excuse me. Let us continue. He enters the classroom, sits down, doesn't say anything. He looks at us. We look at him. At first, there are a few giggles, but Morrie only shrugs, and eventually a deep silence falls, and we begin to notice the smallest sounds. The radiator humming in the corner of the room, the nasal breathing of one of my fat students. Some of us are agitated. When is he going to say something? We squirm, check our watches. A few students look out the window, trying to be above it all. This goes on a good 15 minutes before Morrie finally breaks in with a whisper. What's happening here? He asks, and slowly a discussion begins. As Morrie has wanted all along, about the effect of silence on human relations. Why are we embarrassed by silence? What comfort do we find in all the noise? I am not bothered by the silence. For all the noise I make with my friends, I am still not comfortable talking about my feelings in front of others, especially not classmates. I could sit in the quiet for hours if that is what the class demanded. On my way out, Morrie stops me. You didn't say much today, he remarks. I don't know. I just didn't have anything to add. I think we had a lot. You had a lot to add. In fact, Mitch, you remind me of someone I knew who also liked to keep things to himself when he was younger. Who? Me? The second Tuesday, we talked about feeling sorry for yourself. I came back the next Tuesday, and for many Tuesdays that followed, I looked forward to these visits more than one could think, considering I was flying 700 miles to sit alongside a dying man. But I seemed to slip into a time warp when I visited Morrie, and I liked myself better when I was there. I no longer rented a cellular phone for the rides from the airport. Let them wait, I told myself, mimicking Morrie. The newspaper situation in Detroit had not improved. In fact, it had grown increasingly insane, with nasty confrontations between picketers and replacement workers, people arrested, beaten, lying on the street in front of delivery trucks. In light of this, my visit with Morrie felt like a cleansing rinse of human kindness. We talked about life and we talked about love. We talked about one of Morrie's favorite subjects, compassion, and why our society had such a shortage of it. Before my third visit, I stopped at the market called Bread and Circus. I had seen their bags in Morrie's house and figured he must like the food there. And I loaded up with plastic containers from their fresh food takeaway, things like vermicelli with vegetable and carrot soup and baklava. When I entered Morrie's study, I lifted the bags as if I'd just robbed a bank. Food, man, I bellowed. Morrie rolled his eyes and smiled. Meanwhile, I looked for signs of the disease progression. His fingers worked well enough to write with a pencil or hold up his glasses, but he could not lift his arms much higher than his chest. He was spending less and less time in the kitchen or living room and more in his study, where he had a large reclining chair set up with pillows, blankets, and special cut pieces of foam rubber that held his feet and gave support to his withering legs. He kept a bell near his side, and when his head needed adjusting or he had to go to the commode, as he referred to it, he would shake the bell, and Connie, Tony, Bertha, or Amy, his small army of home care workers, would come in. It wasn't always easy for him to lift the bell, and he got frustrated when he couldn't make it work. I asked Morrie if he felt sorry for himself. Sometimes, in the mornings, he says. That's when I mourn. I feel around my body. I move my fingers and my hands, whatever I can still move. And I mourn what I've lost. I mourn the slow, insidious way in which I'm dying. But then I stop mourning. Just like that? I give myself a good cry if I need it, but then I concentrate on all the good things still in my life, on the people who are coming to see me, on the stories I'm going to hear, on you if it's Tuesday, because we are Tuesday people. I grinned. Tuesday people? Mitch, I don't allow myself any more self-pity than that. A little each morning, a few tears, and that's all. I thought about all the people I knew who spent many of their waking hours feeling sorry for themselves. How useful it would be to put a daily limit on self-pity. Just a few tearful minutes, then on with the day. And if Morrie could do it with such a terrible disease, it's only horrible if you see it that way, Morrie said. It's horrible to watch my body slowly wilt away to nothing, but it's also wonderful because of all the time I get to say goodbye. So, so, Maury here, for those of you who are just coming in who hadn't been in the live before, this book Tuesdays with Maury is about a college professor who has been afflicted with the disease called ALS. It is a disease that's also known as the Lou Gehrig's disease. And if you remember, those of you who don't know Lou Gehrig's, go look him up. Lou Gehrig's was one of the world's best baseball players, and he was afflicted with this disease before he died. And I tell you, I have, as a nurse, I've worked with people who have had this disease, who have this disease. It is progressive, it is insidious, it takes a long time. It just sort of like, it's like you put a piece of cheese and there's a little rat, and this little rat keeps nibbling at the cheese, nibbling at the cheese, just nibbling at the cheese. And it takes the rat a long time to finish the cheese. That is how ALS is. It affects the muscles, and the muscles start getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And as time progresses, the disease continues to ascend the body. And after a while, once it reaches up to the chest and it has taken over your lungs, then that's it. And so Morrie is finding ways to deal with this trauma of facing death. And he's finding very ingenious ways of dealing with it. He's reading more, reaching out to people more, being more loving, being more kind. I mean, he's spending time with friends and family, and just sort of milking the few days that he has left on this earth. And that is not a bad thing at all. Well, welcome into the live. Blessed one, how are you doing, my love? So good to see you, my darling. It's a pleasure to see you. Wait, I need to go back to our release because those two those two um those two things finish already. Come on. Why is it like this? Yeah, those two things finish already, so we are going to continue. Let us continue reading. He smiled. Not everyone is so lucky. I studied him in the chair, unable to stand, to wash, to pull on his pants. Lucky? Did he really say he was lucky? During a break, when Morrie had to use the bathroom, I leafed through the Boston newspaper that sat near his chair. There was a story about a small timber town where two teenage girls tortured and killed a 73-year-old man who had befriended them, then threw a party in his trailer home and showed off the corpse. There was another story about the upcoming trial of a straight man who had killed a gay man after the latter had gone on a TV talk show and said he had a crush on him. I put the paper away. Morrie was rolled back in, smiling as always, and Connie went to lift him from the wheelchair to the recliner. You want me to do that? I asked. There was a momentary silence, and I'm not even sure why I offered. But Morrie looked at Connie and said, Can you show him how to do it? Sure, Connie said. Following her instructions, I leaned over, locked my forearms under Morrie's armpits, and hooked him towards me, as if lifting a large log from underneath. Then I straightened up, hoisted him as I rose. Normally, when you lift someone, you expect their arms to tighten around your grip, but Morrie could not do this. He was mostly dead weight, and I felt his head bounce softly on my shoulder, and his body sag against me like a big damp loaf. Ah, he softly groaned. I got you, I said. Holding him, holding him like that moved me in a way I cannot describe, except to say I felt the seeds of death inside his shivering frame. And as I laid him on the chair, adjusting his head on the pillow, I had the coldest realization that our time was running out, and I had to do something. Oh, you are so welcome, Arlie. So welcome every time, my love. Every time. You are welcome every time. Let me see why this is doing this. You can't deal with this, Okay. Let me find one of your things, or at least that has way more baking Arlie's way. All right, let the baking bakes play. I just want to make sure that it is not okay. All right, the bakes are playing. What's what Ricky do there? So what is Ricky do? All right, then I want workshop or something. All right, Ricky do something I want workshop this so. And this one I yard food silent life almost 2-3 years ago. Anyway, let us continue. It is my junior year, it's 1978, when disco and rocky movies are the cultural rage. We are in an we are in an unusual sociology class at Brandeis, something Morrie called group process. Each week, we study the ways in which the students in the group interact with one another, how they respond to anger, jealousy, attention. We are human lab rats. More often than not, someone ends up crying. I refer to it as the touchy-feely course. Morrie says I should be more open-minded. On this day, Morrie says he has an exercise for us to try. We are to stand facing away from our classmates and fall backwards, relying on another student to catch us. Most of us are uncomfortable with this, and we cannot let go for more than a few inches before stopping ourselves. We laugh in embarrassment. Finally, one student, a thin, quiet, dark-haired girl whom I notice almost always wear bulky white fisherman sweaters, crosses her arms over her chest, closes her eyes, leans back, and does not flinch, like one of those Lipton tea commercials where the where the model splashes into the pool. For a moment, I am sure she is going to thump on the floor. At the last instant, her assigned partner grabs her head and shoulders and yanks her up harshly. Wow, wow! Several students yell. Some clap. Morrie finally smiles. You see, he says to the girl, you close your eyes. That was the difference. Sometimes you cannot believe what you see. You have to believe what you feel. And if you are ever going to have other people trust you, you must feel that you can trust them too, even when you are in the dark, even when you are falling. Ah, that is wonderful. You gotta trust people and hope that they trust you too. Lord have mercy, these are some good advice from Morrie, but trust is not my best suit. trust is not Trust is not my best suit because I'm always thinking that people got some sinister plans and sinister plots and are pretentious. So it's just my thought. Look, yes, look what me do, yes, so. Holy mackerel. Anywho, I didn't even realize it. But anyway, let us continue. Let us continue while I watch Ricky doing something here, so. And Arlie, so what Arlie's making this, so. Oh, she make bread. All right, let us continue. I hope you all are enjoying the reading, guys. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. Yeah, and if you're enjoying the reading, let me know. Let me know. The third Tuesday, we talk about regrets. The next Tuesday, I arrived with the normal bags of food: pasta with corn, potato salad, apple cobbler, and something else, a Sunny tape recorder. I want to remember what we talk about, I told Morrie. I want to have your voice so I can listen to it later. You mean when I'm dead? Don't say that. He laughed. Mitch, I'm going to die, and sooner rather than later. He regarded the new machine. So big, he said. I felt intrusive, as reporters often do, and I began to think that a tape machine between two people who were supposedly friends was a foreign object, an artificial ear. With all the people clamoring for his time, perhaps I was trying to take too much away from these Tuesdays. Listen, I said, picking up the recorder, we don't have to use this if it makes you uncomfortable. He stopped me, wagged a finger, then hooked his glasses off his nose, letting them dangle on the string around his neck. He looked me square in the eyes. Put it down, he said. I put it down. Mitch, he continued, softly now, you don't understand. I want to tell you about my life. I want to tell you before I can't tell you anymore. His voice dropped to a whisper. I want someone to hear my story. Will you? I nodded. We sat quietly for a moment. So, he said, is it turned on? He's talking about the tape recorder. I guess Morrie is happy that Mitch has brought the tape recorder so he can take their conversations to listen to them after Morrie has passed away. Now, the truth is, this tape recorder was more than nostalgia. I was losing Morrie. We were all losing Morrie, his family, his friends, his ex-students, his fellow professors, his pals from the political discussion groups that he loved so much, his former dance partners, all of us. And I suppose tapes, like photographs and videos, are a desperate attempt to steal something from Death's suitcase. But it was also becoming clear to me, through his courage, his humor, his patience, and his openness, that Morrie was looking at life from some very different place than anyone else I knew. A healthier place, a more sensible place, and he was about to die. If some mystical if some mystical clarity of thought came when you came when you looked death in the eye, then I knew Morrie wanted to share it, and I wanted to remember it for as long as I could. The first time I saw Morrie on Nightline, I wondered what regrets he had once he knew his death was imminent. Did he lament lost friends? Would he have done much differently? Selfishly, I wondered if I were in his shoes, would I be consumed with sad thoughts of all that I had missed? Would I regret the secrets I had kept hidden? When I mentioned this to Morrie, he nodded. It's what everyone worries about, isn't it? What if today were my last day on earth? He studied my face, and perhaps he saw an ambivalence about my own choices. I had this vision of me kneeling over at my desk one day, halfway through a story, my editor snatching the copy even as the medics carried my body away. Mitch, Morrie said. I shook my head and said nothing, but Morrie picked up on my hesitation. Mitch, he said, the the culture doesn't encourage you to think about such things until you are really about to die. We are so wrapped up with egotistical things, career, family, having enough money, meeting the mortgage, getting a new car, fixing the radiator when it breaks. We are involved in trillions of little acts just to keep going. So we don't get into the habit of standing back and looking at our lives and saying, is that all? Is that all I want? Is something missing? He paused. You need someone to probe you in that direction. It won't just happen automatically. I knew what he was saying. We all need teachers in our lives, and mine was sitting in front of me. Fine, I figured. If I was to be the student, then I would be a good student, as good as I could be. On the plane ride home that day, I made a small list on a yellow legal pad. issues and problems that we all grapple with, from happiness to aging to having children to death. Of course, there were a million self help books on these subjects and plenty of cable TV shows and $90 per hour consultation sessions. America had become Persian bazaar of self help. But there still seem to be no clear answers. Do you take care of others or take care of your inner child? Return to traditional values or reject tradition as useless? Seek success or seek simplicity? Just say no or just do it. All I knew was Morrie, my old professor, wasn't in the self-pity business. He was standing on the tracks, listening to Death's locomotive whistle, and he was very clear about the important things in life. I wanted that clarity. Every confused and tortured soul I knew wanted that clarity. Ask me anything, Morrie always says. So I wrote this list: death, fear, aging, greed, marriage, family, society, forgiveness, a meaningful life. The list was in my bag when I returned to West Newton for the fourth time. A Tuesday in late August, when the air conditioning at the Logan Airport terminal was not working and people fanned themselves and wiped sweat angrily from their foreheads, and every face I saw looked ready to kill somebody. By the start of my senior year, I had taken so many sociology classes, I am only a few credits shy of a degree. Morrie suggests I try an honor thesis. Me? I ask. What would I write about? What interests you? He says. We bat it back and forth, until we finally settled on, of all things, sports. I begin a year-long project on how football in America has become ritualistic, almost a religion, an opiate for the masses. I have no idea that this is training for my future career. I only know it gives me another once a week session with Morrie. And with his help, by spring, I have a 112-page thesis, researched, footnoted, documented, and neatly bound in black leather. I showed it to Morrie with the pride of a little leaguer rounding the bases on his first home run. Congratulations, Morrie says. I grin as he leafs through it, and I glance around his office. The shelves of books, the hardwood floor, the throw rug, the couch. I think to myself that I have sat just about everywhere there is to sit in this room. I don't know, Mitch, Morrie muses, adjusting his glasses as he reads. With work like this, we may have to get you back here for grad school. Yeah, right, I said. I snickered, but the idea is momentarily appealing. Part of me is scared of leaving school. Part of me wants to go desperately. Tension of opposites. I watch Morrie as he reads my thesis and wonder what the big world will be like out there. All right, that is Mitch and Morrie having their Tuesday sessions. Every Tuesday, Mitch gets on a plane and flies several hundred miles to go see Morrie, his former professor, who is currently afflicted with the cruel and insidious disease called ALS. And so here he is trying to preserve as much memory as he can of Morrie. he's using a tape recorder now to tape record some of the lovely advice that Morrie be giving him, so that after Morrie is gone, he can still use them to draw back on. And this book, you can see, he was written like many years ago, like maybe like in the 90s or so, because it talks about um OJ Simpson's trial. OJ Simpson's trial was, I believe, in 1994, somewhere around there. So, so it is clear that it gives us a timeline as to when this book was written. Guys, Auntie Trev is exhausted. That is going to be, wait, let me see. Let me see if another chapter can do. All right, we're going to read one more chapter. We're going to read one more chapter that's called The Audiovisual Part 2. And I just want to prepare you all for this last chapter that I'm going to be reading. It's going to be the last one. And then when we come back tomorrow, we will continue reading. This book is pretty small, but it talawa, a very powerful book. So I'm going to be reading. This will be finished reading by next week. We're going to be finished reading this. So we're going to be reading this last chapter that is called The Audiovisual Part 2. Mr. Ricky, I truly know me tired. Me go to my bed this morning, 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, the phone alarm, 4 o'clock for me get up to read the Bible. Me couldn't get up. I was so tired. Me just dropped back the sheet over me, went back to sleep and woke up. It was time to get ready for work. Yeah, sometimes that happens. Because last night I was up until late doing all kinds of things. So this is the last chapter, guys. I'm just making sure I get you all prepared. This is the last chapter that we're reading for today. And it's called The Audiovisual Part 2. The Nightline show had done a follow-up story on Morrie, partly because the reception for the first one had been so strong. This time, when the cameramen and producers came through the door, they already felt like family. And Couple himself was noticeably warmer. There were no feeling out process, no interview before the interview. As warm-up, Couple and Morrie exchanged stories about their childhood backgrounds. Couple spoke of growing up in England, and Morrie spoke of growing up in the Bronx. Morrie wore a long-sleeved blue shirt. He was almost always chilly, even when it was 90 degrees outside. But Couple removed his jacket and did the interview in shirt and tie. It was as if Morrie were breaking him down, one layer at a time. "You look fine," Couple said when the tape began to roll. "That's what everybody tells me," Morrie says. "You sound fine." "That's what everybody tells me," Morrie says. "So how do you know things are going downhill?" Morrie sighed. "Nobody can know it but me, Ted. But I know it." And as he spoke, it became obvious he was not waving his hands to make a point as freely as he had in their first conversation. He had trouble pronouncing certain words. The I sound seemed to get caught in his throat. In a few more months, he might no longer speak at all. "Here's how my emotions go," Morrie told Couple. "When I have people and friends here, I'm very up. The loving relationships maintain me. But there are days when I am depressed. Let me not deceive you. I see certain things going, and I feel a sense of dread. What am I going to do without my hands? What happens when I can't speak? Swallowing, I don't care so much about, so they feed me through a tube. So what? But my voice, my hands, they are such an essential part of me. I talk with my voice. I gesture with my hands. This is how I give to people." "How will you give when you can no longer speak?" Couple asked. Morrie shrugged. Maybe I'll have everyone ask me yes or no questions. It was such a sim- it was such a simple answer that couple had to smile. He asked Morrie about silence. He mentioned a dear friend Morrie had, Morrie Stein, who had first sent Morrie aphorisms to the Boston Globe. They had been they had been together at Brandy's since the early 60s. Now Stein was going deaf. Couple imagined the two men together one day, one unable to speak and the other unable to hear. What would that be like? We will hold hands, Morris said, and there'll be a lot of love passing between us. Ted, we have had 35 years of friendship. You don't need speech or hearing to feel that. Before the show ended, Morrie read Couple one of the letters he had received. Since the first Nightline program, there had been a great deal of mail. One particular letter came from a school teacher in Pennsylvania who taught a special class of 9 children. Every child in the class had suffered the death of a parent. Here's what I sent her back, Morrie told Couple, perching his glasses gingerly on his nose and ears. Dear Barbara, I was very moved by your letter. I feel the work you have done with the children who have lost a parent is very important. I also lost a parent at an early age. Suddenly, with the camera still humming, Morrie adjusted the glasses. He stopped, but his lips. He stopped, bit his lips, and began to choke up. Tears fell down his nose. I lost my mother when I was a child, and it was quite a blow to me. I wish I'd had a group like yours where I could have been able to talk about my sorrows. I would have joined your group. I would have joined your group because his voice cracked. Because I am so lonely. Morrie, Couple said, that was 70 years ago your mother died. The pain still goes on? You bet it does, Morrie whispered. All right, guys, that is the end of that section of Tuesdays with Morrie. When we come back sometime tomorrow, we will continue the reading of this book, Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. I hope you all enjoy the reading as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. Guys, if you came into the live and forgot to hit the like button coming in, don't forget to hit it on the way going out. And once again, I want to say thanks to everybody who came into the live. Yard Foods, Ricky, and Sister Arlies are currently getting the watch hours from my other devices, and it's my absolute pleasure doing so for you, my dear friends. All right, and that's where we're going to end the live for tonight, my friends. Until next time, this is Trev from Trevessence, where your journey matters. Have yourselves a good night, everybody. Good night, guys. I will see you all in the morning.